Hi everyone, this is a short screencast for Independent Colleges Dublin for CIMA E1 for November 2014. And what we're going to look at under the operations heading is Porter's value chain. Now at E1 level, what you're required to do is really just to have a reasonable understanding of the elements within the value chain and also understanding of some of the definitions. It's unlikely that we would have a significant need to apply the value chain to a particular scenario. So just an overview is sufficient for us. So really, what does Porter's value chain do, or what is it used for? Well, essentially what Porter is suggesting here under this operations banner is that any business, any organization can be broken down into a series of activities, and those activities form in effect a chain of some kind. And what you'll see on the left hand side here, and indeed down the bottom, is that we have two types of activities according to Porter. We have the primary activities, the main ones, which I'll come back to in a moment, and then we have the support activities up here that really support the main function of the company. So if we look at the primary activities first, really what we see is a sort of a train, or indeed a process with items coming inbound being transformed into a product or indeed a service, and then outbound logistics with the products going out or the service going out to the customer. We have marketing and sales then in some way to really sell the product or service, and then we have some sort of aftercare or customer service at the end. Now, what you'll see on the right-hand side here, before we touch on the support activities, is that this whole value chain, as it were, is designed to drive margin. Okay, so really what we're trying to do is increase or augment the company's competitive advantage, and therefore, make more money. So increase our margin, increase our profitability. So really, we're talking here really under these primary activities about efficiency. In other words, the idea that the company could use a model such as this to look at the efficiency at which it undertakes its primary activities. Okay, now the support activities are fairly straightforward. What you'll see is a number of different areas, not least sort of human resources or people, and the IT side under technology, and indeed the sort of the buying function, sometimes called the shopping function. Basically all the physical resources that the entity purchases. And really all of these factors, all of these support factors are in effect impact upon the primary activities in some way, shape or form. So again, we require a high degree preferably of efficiency in each of these areas. Okay, so other points here, I'll come on to how specifically we would use the value chain, or a little bit more detail on that. One of the other points is this idea of linkages. As we said above, really what Porter is trying to do is to break the business down into a set of activities. And if you imagine that there are a number of activities under each of these headings, then really the linkages between the activities are important. In other words, the way that perhaps inbound logistics links into operations, the way that operations links into outbound logistics. So really what we're required to do under the heading of Porter's value chain is make sure that these linkages are efficient, and indeed that they're coordinated. Okay. Now, over and above the individual chain for an individual company, what Porter refers to also is something that we call a value system. So what does that mean? Well, really, what that means is that there are a series of value chains for a series of different companies, and really that they all link in some way along the supply chain. So what you have here is the organization itself, their value chain, and you have a series of suppliers supplying goods or perhaps services in some way to the organization itself. And then over and above that, as the organization ships out its product or indeed its service, what you'll see is that there is another value chain added. So the value system really can be seen to be a sort of a set of value chains with all their linkages between companies. Okay. Now, other areas which are important, really this little list here, using the value chain. Now, I've already touched on this in terms of my mention of competitive advantage. In other words, Porter's value chain is a way of looking at the internal activities of the company and trying to really augment a company's competitive advantage. What does competitive advantage mean? Well, very simply, an edge over competitors in some way, shape, or form. So how can the value chain be used? Well, what they could do, or what a company could do, is perhaps find new ways of doing things, or more efficient ways. They could possibly combine activities, or perhaps even get rid of certain activities that don't add value in any way. Also, manage the linkages, perhaps reconnect them if an activity is stopped in some way, or perhaps make those linkages more efficient. And also look at the linkages in the whole value system, which I've mentioned above. Okay, they choose one in this slide. They choose one area of procurement. As I mentioned earlier on, it's all about physical resources. Now, that could be anything. That could be material. It could be buildings. It could be transport vehicles, etc., etc. And so really under this heading of physical resources, what are we trying to do? Well, we're certainly trying to get good value for money and keep our stock holding costs down, and indeed keep our quality up. So again, it's all a reference back to efficiency, and that's really what Porter's value chain is all about. It's really using it to be more efficient at what you do. Just down at the bottom of the slide here, they have CIMA's definition of the value chain, and again, pretty straightforward, just really a sequence of activities which in effect should add value, and if they don't, then those activities should certainly be stopped or improved in some way, shape, or form. Okay, so that's just a very, very short summary of the value chain and how it works. A popular little topic along the E stream, so a good idea to have a grip on not only the constituent elements of the chain, but also the terminology. Make sure that you can define, for example, what a value system is, and make sure that you know what these areas mean. For example, procurement, a shopping function, or indeed operations. That's where the main processing takes place of the product or the raw material. Okay, I hope that's helpful. Many thanks.